Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching and listening to Historian Radio's Echoes of the News, and I am Muhammad Hussain Qazi, and these are today's headlines from the past. On this day, the 24th of December, in 1906, the first radio telephone broadcast was demonstrated by Canadian born Professor Reginald Fessenden from a radio station at Brant Rock in Massachusetts to ship's radio within a 5-mile range. A fascinating moment in the history of technology leading up to the development of effective communications. Continuing on this date, in 1914, a German monoplane dropped a single bomb on Dover. The first ever to be dropped on British soil, it landed on a rectory garden lawn and blew out the house windows exactly 28 years later after this event. In 1942, at Peenemünde, the Germans launched the world's first surface-to-surface guided missile, the V-1 rocket, and in this day in 1944, the Germans flew the first jet aircraft for wartime use. Riveting headlines from the battlefield would occur on this day, the 24th of December in 1914, 1942, and 1944. Moving forward, on this day, on the subject of news from the battlefield, in 1943, General Dwight D. Eisenhower was appointed by Roosevelt to be the commander-in-chief of the invasion of Europe. The desk-bound general had never fought a single campaign. Fascinating. And lastly, on the subject of war, in 1979, on the 24th of December 1979, Soviet troops invaded Afghanistan as the Kabul government of the People's Democratic Party of Afghanistan fell, and it would trigger the 10-year-long conflict of the Afghan War. However, on a lighter side of things, on this very day in 1922, the BBC broadcast The Truth About Father Christmas by Phyllis M. Twigg, the first play written for the radio in Britain. And how interesting that it came with festive themes, as this day marks the Christmas Eve celebrations. And on that intriguing note, we conclude today's headlines of the day. And now we move on to the next segment of our show, where we recount the famous births and deaths of famous figures from the 19th and 20th centuries and sometimes earlier. Born on this day in 1167 was King John, the youngest son of Henry II, King of England, who was forced by the barons to sign the Magna Carta. When he tried to revoke his authorization, civil war broke out. And alongside him, in 1905, Howard Hughes, American tycoon who inherited the Hughes Tool Company on his father's death and invested most of that money in Hollywood productions. However, he is best remembered for his contributions to aviation. Howard Hughes was born on this day in 1905. He worked under an assumed name for American Airways, then left after less than a year with enough knowledge just to start his own aircraft company, but also design an aircraft to take the airspeed record. In 1950, he became a recluse, living by all accounts a bizarre lifestyle. And unfortunately, on this day, in 1524, Vasco da Gama, Portuguese navigator who found the sea route from Europe to the east, passed away on this day in 1524. And alongside him, in 1863, W.M. Thackeray, English author of Vanity Fair, would also breathe his last. And on that note, we conclude today's headlines of the day. You are watching and listening to Historian Radio's Echoes of the News, and I am Muhammad Hussain Qazi, and these were today's headlines as history first heard them. Good night.